clear 3. Up to go.
Every day we need people to, call in, place orders, send us tips, promote the show through their networks, because this is really the only way news is getting out. Like Pastor Sam giving his dissertation there on Central and South America. You're not going to hear that stuff anywhere. Maybe a little bit on Democracy Now!, but it'll be like praising the communists. That would be the only thing they'd be praising, even though they'd be talking about it, what's going on. All right, I got a couple callers. I got Pastor Sam in Texas and Zero in Virginia. 888-201-2244, 888-201-2244. Let's go to Pastor Sam. How's it going, sir?
Going very well. Good to talk to you, Rob. It's easy to forget that the first real battle of World War II happened in South America. I really wanted to visit the wreck of the Graf Spee, and I had to preach the whole time, so I didn't get to do that. But right now there's all these rumblings going on down there, and we need to not miss it because it affects us, and this is where global war is beginning.
All right, so you say this is the first battle of World War II was fought in South America?
Yes, it's the famous Battle of the River Plate, and a horrific German weapon, which they constructed in violation of all treaties, named the Admiral Graf Spee. Graf Spee, they say in German. And it had been going around the Atlantic causing chaos and blowing things up. And finally, the British cornered it down there, and they had a naval battle. But that's all history. Right now, there's rumblings. There are Trumpist presidents being elected in this country, in this country, in this country. And a lot of those countries are really in civil war, to include the nations that are sending a lot of migrants to the United States. So some of the presidents are standing with Trump, like Jimmy Morales in Guatemala. He was, by the way, the first other nation beyond the United States to move their Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. That was Jimmy Morales. And he was elected in 2015 before Trump. So, see, the Trump revolution really started down there. It started in Chile, it started in Paraguay, it started in Guatemala, and then the United States elected Trump. But now Pence is meeting with all these presidents, and there's a lot of rumblings. It's very interesting. It's dropped off of the Drudge for today, but right now, out of Honduras, there's supposed to be a whole new migrant caravan, and the pictures of that are on the net. 1,000 or 1,400 people are going to march through Guatemala and through Mexico and come and find asylum. Now, there's a president there that we can depend on, and he was elected just recently and under controversy, but that's Juan Orlando Hernandez, and Hillary and her people have been trying to remove him. And these presidents are fighting also against the UN. The UN's trying to remove Jimmy Morales out of Guatemala. He had to make a decree just a few days ago that he was not going to follow their instructions anymore, the UN Anti-Corruption Committee, because they're biased and they're prejudiced. He went and surrounded their compound in army jeeps as he made the declaration. So the things that we talk about could happen here with Hillary Clinton, with martial law, et cetera, they're happening to our neighbors. And the rumblings are coming closer and closer and closer. It's very interesting to watch.
Here's another interesting thing, because you look at, we seem to know more about European news, especially, Britain and Germany, kind of EU type news, than we do about South America, and Central America. We know a little bit about Mexico because they're our neighbor. We look at the corruption and drugs. But why is that, if you ask people who Bolsonaro is, if you asked him who he was, I would say probably 90%, 95% of the American population doesn't know who this guy is. And he's probably going to be elected president of Brazil.
We hope.
Yeah. Are you hearing anything about that with his second round? When are we having the second round of voting?
It's October 28th, so it's later this month. But he only has to pick up 1 out of 5 swing votes, because he had 46% of the vote, and he only needs to get to 50. And his opponent only had like 26%. So he was like 19% ahead of his opponent. And so that's the math. He only has to pick up 1 out of 5 swing votes. They have more than 30 political parties in Brazil. And I was shocked. I did a YouTube just on Jair Bolsonaro. It's interesting and it's concise if you're interested in that. And
yeah, what's the title of it?
You have to just find it under my name, Samuel Honnold Samuel, on YouTube, and then it'll come right up with the Brazilian flag.
Well,
and that tip,
you seem to do a lot of traveling down south of the border, of our southern border.
You know,
why are they letting these migrant trains come up through? You know, why are they going through Guatemala? Why are they going through Mexico? Nobody's stopping them at their borders.
Because there's civil war. See, there's this president. Let's go to Guatemala, okay? That country controls the isthmus. It goes all the way across. The only two Central American countries that don't are Belize and El Salvador. El Salvador is the cause of a lot of problems right now. Their president was included in Pence's discussion, and even though he's a former guerrilla that grew up to be president, hopefully he'll calm things down. But Guatemala is in civil war. There's a UN anti-corruption commission that's trying to cast doubt on the election and get this president out that is draining the swamp and doing well. And it's gotten so serious that he had to send 20 military vehicles to surround the UN headquarters. You know, if you go to his Twitter page, there's an April 23rd tweet, and his Twitter is it's his name, which is it is his name, Jimmy Morales, and then GT, Golf Tango. That's Guatemala. Jimmy Morales, GT. And if you go down to April 23rd on his Twitter feed, he plays the video of the UN breaking into his presidential palace with a fake warrant. And it's all on there with English subtitles. So this is the degree of fighting. He has got a deep state that's trying to send migrants, that's trying to get the UN in control, that's fighting him for the control of his own government apparatus, his own military and police organizations.
So basically the chaos in that country right now is just allowing routes, human smuggling routes to appear. So they're just kind of funneling them through into Mexico.
That's right. And Mexico has its own deep state. And Mexico just elected Mao Zedong to be their president. He is an avowed socialist, AMLO, they call him. He's an avowed socialist. The Pope stopped preaching when he was in Rome and stopped what he was doing and gave him a medal and said, "You are a missionary of the Catholic Church." And he's in with the Pope. He's in with the UN. He's in with China. He's going to bring China in to do all kinds of things. And so the deep state has won that election. Now, time will tell if Trump stands up and casts doubt on that, because it was the globalist organizations that have confirmed the last 2 or 3 fraudulent elections in Mexico. Maybe Trump will stand up and say, "I'm not so sure about that. We're going to take another look at this election." Now, in the UN, some of these presidents, most notably of Chile and of Peru, they stood up at the UN and said, "We don't recognize the Venezuelan election. We don't recognize that this government is legitimate. We refuse to recognize it, and we contradict the results of that election." So that's beginning to happen. And now there are some organizations out there like the Organization of American States and the IMF, which are basically globalists, but they're beginning to move in the right direction. And I think Trump's putting pressure here and there. Mm-hmm. That's my synopsis, that he put pressure on the IMF and said, "You go and you bail out the Argentine peso because the Fed caused the problem by raising the interest rates. That's our ally. That's a conservative president. He's trying to sail through stormy seas." So
and these are decades-old issues where they loan them money for these big public works projects, and then they come in and go, "Well, you can't pay this loan back. Oh, it's too much interest, huh? Well, now you're going to work with us on these trade deals or vote our way on this and that, or we're going to just remove you from power," which is what you see happens time and time again.
Yes, sir. That's what the IMF is known for. And the Argentinians aren't completely behind this, but he's coming out. Hillary Clinton's spiritual twin was the president of Argentina. And then she got to be the senator. And now she's under prosecution for being in cahoots with Hezbollah, blowing things up, blowing up Jewish centers, 200 dead, each of 2 different occasions. So now she's very close to facing the music for that. But there's this own civil war in Argentina also. A good Trumpist president, Mauricio Macri. And he's doing great things, but he's got so much pension debt. There's so much wobble. He's got enemies within the central bank. So we really need to watch that. And as you're standing in Argentina, it's just over the horizon, the wreck of the Graf Spee. The wreck of the Graf Spee is right there. And in 1939, Hitler was invading Poland. He was attacking France, and Americans didn't really care. But then when the British Navy got in this massive gun battle in the Atlantic, lost soldiers, all of a sudden it was in the Americas. But it happened in South America. It's so easy to ignore. We need to be watching these signs, Rob. We need to be watching it. The info warriors need to watch it. We need to publicize it. There's only 2,000 views of Jimmy Morales' help message of the UN invading his White House.
No, it is amazing how the news cycle doesn't even focus on what's going on in South and Central America and just kind of pretends that these places don't exist when they are our neighbors. We're connected by land all the way down, if you count unless you count the Panama Canal. But yeah, there it is right now. Jimmy Morales on his Twitter, April 23rd. So he's got the UN cars coming in, trying to serve him with a warrant. And it is amazing that this goes on in our neck of the woods. And we seem to be, more concerned about what's going on in Russia, or, we should be concerned about China, because China is coming in. They're going to be coming into Mexico with more money and more infrastructure projects like they're doing in Africa, because they're trying to wrap up these resources for their empire. And there are resources in South America and in Central America that we could use. You look at Venezuela. It's got more oil, probably more oil than we do. They just don't know how to produce it, and they don't have the capabilities. But there's no reason a country like that should be, having their people eat the zoo animals. But that's what we have going on. Pastor Sam, thanks for that history lesson and geopolitical insight of what's going on in South and Central America. So we do need to be able to look at, you guys pulled up a Daily Caller article about the caravan coming up from Honduras. If y'all can pull that up one more time, I'll read that out to people. And then we'll see if we can get to zero before we go to our next break. Do you have that article from Daily Caller? Okay. All right, well, let's bring up zero from Virginia. Here it is. Huge migrant caravan forms in Honduras with aim of reaching U.S. borders. So that's going to be the next big crisis here as they jump on the beast and make the way up through Mexico.